Good morning. Today is March 14th, 2024. Sorry I have a little sore throat today. I was teaching the class yesterday all day and talking, and also was really tired yesterday, so I got a little late sleep. And I'm recording now after Shachrit instead of before Shachrit. It's now about 6:45 instead of 6:45. But we're still catching up on our lesson number 24 and 25 of chapter 24 and 25 of Tanya. This is our lesson number 30, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And Tanya talks here about interesting analysis of the person. We discussed later that, we talk about the garments of the soul. Speech, thought, speech, and action, and pre-thought, just a feeling of something. We cited Grasshopper from the Kung Fu movie when David Carradine talks in his youth to his master, and he said, reach your inner self to the outer. Essentially, he discusses the Tanya concept about reaching to the Chokhmah, to the pre-thought, to the feeling, to the intuitive relation to God that we all have, essentially become one of Him, not close to Him, but one with Him. So Tanya brings an example. How come the person is willing to die for violating, even for what Torah doesn't prohibit? Example I made, the Nazi officer had put the gun to the guy's head and tells him, spit in the Torah scroll or else I'll shoot you. And the guy takes the bullet and he cannot spit. Non-religious, no formal Jewish upbringing, and he just cannot do that. He can do that in order to save his life, but he cannot do that. And yet, the same person in other circumstances can, God forbid, commit adultery, have out-of-marriage relationship or something like this. How can it happen? So the two views of look at it. Tanya said that person doesn't consider that. He has an inkling that's not improper, that it's not proper, it's inappropriate. And yet, he said that's not, it's not such a great violation. He doesn't think about it. And yet, in the time of stress, he's able to give his life for Torah, for God. So, Tanya is asking the question, saying, well, look at it from another perspective. Why the person, if he knows he can even give his life for certain commandments, why he is not willing to understand that the violation of relatively minor command, minor action, for which he doesn't give his life, is not appropriate. And we're going to leave this question for you to contemplate. We have in us that feeling of unclarity, if you will. So Tanya helps us to clarify the feeling. Tanya brings in chapter 25 the concept of the Shema. Why Shema appears only in Deuteronomy? We say Shema Israel twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And the third time, actually, we're saying before we fall asleep, say Shema Israel. And Shema was given in Deuteronomy, which is the 5th book of Moses. Why wasn't given that commandment in the beginning? This is a central prayer. Every Jew, even non-observant Jews, know Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, and then continue with other passages. Well, the reason Tanya explains that is because the mitzvah of reciting Shema twice daily was only given to Jewish people 40 years after Sinai. 40 years they were in the desert. Now, Deuteronomy, 5th book of Moses, where Moses talks to people directly, not translating, inspired by God, of course, but not saying, the Torah doesn't quote, and God spoke to Moses saying, but it's Moses speaking to people now. And Tanya explained that now Israel, Jewish people now, not just Hebrews, not Israelis, but also Jews. They became Jews in Sinai. And then they're entering the Canaan, the land that God promised to them, and they're entering this, and now they're going to enter after 40 years in a desert where they were protected from the environment, from everything by God. They didn't have to worry about the future. Future was taken care of. Now they have to come in this land, work, plant gardens, defend themselves from the invasions. And so the problem, Tanya is saying, is not that now they had extra protection from the armies that were attacking them. That, Tanya says, would be strange, because it says in the Torah that let's see, I can't readily put my finger on it. Here it is, in Deuteronomy 11:25. God will cast the trepidation and dread of you upon all the land where you will tread. So God will protect you. Why do you need Shema in addition to that? So God protects you. Don't worry about Shema. God automatically takes care of it. He will from the invaders. So you can be victorious in your life in the land. And yet you will now subject to assimilation. There were peoples that do not attack you physically. They say, you're fine, get along. And later on, when Syrian Greeks, after Alexander the Great, later on, when they conquered the land, and they were in the northern part of Israel, the northern part of Palestine, that time it was called Canaan, and then it became land of Israel, because the name Palestine only came about when Romans took over the land, and in order to stick it to Jews, to make it more hurtful to them, they call it Palestina, because Philistines, which is Hamites, we talked about earlier, descendants of Ham, they came from Kaftor, and they come Kaftor, and the word Philistine, in Hebrew it means invaders. So invaders came from the islands and settled in the area roughly where Gaza area, kind of that area, and their own brethren, other sons of Ham, fought with them. So when Israel came to land, they fought Canaanites, including Philistines there. And when Israel eventually, the temple was destroyed by the Romans, if you know the history, Romans initially didn't want to destroy it. Romans just want to occupy it, pay taxes, and Romans said, listen, we'll get along. Let's get along. We're not against you. We're with you. Let's live together. But we're the upper power. As I guess eventually, as Islam came to in a 7th century, came also. It was a peaceful coexistence, but basically Muhammad conquered the area, and basically they were in charge. And you can get along with local population, but you have to remember who is the boss. We live in peace. We're not going to hurt you, but I'm the boss. So Jews lost the land in the 7th century, essentially, to Muhammad and his followers. They eventually came. Prior to that, it was Greeks and Romans. Then later on, Ottoman Turks, and then we come to the modern history, essentially. But when we come back to the Greeks, the Syrian Greeks, they said, listen, you can live, but what's this Torah studying? And what's the circumcision? Let's go to the gym, let's do sports. When Jews came to the gyms, they were ashamed. They were circumcised, and other people, Greeks, were not. So they stopped circumcision. And so live peacefully. So how now Tanya is saying, you say Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, twice a day, to remind you that you were given commandments to follow Torah and to exercise those three garments of thought, speech, and action, which is your studying of the Torah, good deeds, mitzvot, and the prayer. That will protect you from this assimilative force, from assimilation. An example, in America, statistics, I guess Pew report says 70% of American Jews intermarry. And those who intermarry would say, nothing wrong with that. Listen, we're good people, and I'm not judging right or wrong. The fact is, if the rate of assimilation at 70% continues, eventually there will be no Jews left in America. I don't know how that in France or in England, is there also similar process of assimilation or not? Well, that is not I don't to judge good or bad, but all I'm all I'm here presenting, then Tanya said, say Shema Israel. Once you stop saying Shema Israel twice a day, it's a road to assimilation. Whether it's good or bad, you to decide. I mean, you can find many Jews in America, for example, that they say my great-great-grandfather was Jewish. I have some Jewish genes in me, and that's true. But over another several generations, would the person remember that his great-great-grandfather was Jewish? Probably be gone. Does it make him a bad person? Not necessarily. He can be a great person. And that's a philosophical question. What if Jews didn't exist? Yesterday we recorded on the Perplexed group the topic of Jews on the moon. If Jews didn't exist on the earth, would humanity be better? Well, I'm sure many people, anti-Semites, would say, yeah, it would be great. Well, just imagine the world without Jews. Would the non-Jews want the world without Jews? Maybe some. Nazis probably would. Maybe KKK probably would. I wonder if anybody made a survey that people criticize Jews, people criticize Israel. I mean, United Nations passes like 90% of the resolutions against Israel. Not many resolutions against Rwanda, millions of people massacred. Against, in Syria, there's 1,000. In Yemen, hundreds of thousands of people are killed and dead for their religious beliefs, for whatever. But in Israel, it's all about Israel. Israel is a dark force in United Nations' eyes. That's just the way the world is. That's the way the cracking and filtering is happening today. That's the footsteps of Mashiach. That's the footsteps of clarity to ultimately come. It's coming, and when clarity is coming, the mix of darkness and light has to slowly separate, and light and dark will have to become forces counter each other until light will enter the darkness and illuminate the world with internal truth. That is why Tanya now is telling us, remember to say Shema Israel. That's a mitzvah. If you choose not to do it, consequences are yours. I don't know what the consequences are. I am not God. I'm not even close to knowing the details. But intuitively, I don't think it's a good thing. So I'm going to leave it on a good note. Say Shema Israel twice a day. In the morning when you go to shul or even at home, and in the evening. And not a bad thing to say the third time you're going to bed. If nothing else, it will help you fall asleep and have a nice, good dreams. So have a great day. Have a great day. Today is Thursday, March 14th, 2024. Shema Israel.